welcome to this, and I'm sure most of you have already seen the title, and of course the title says my version of what I would do with the invasion angle. This has been a question that has been asked of me pretty much since I first got here on YouTube, is what would I have done different? What would I have, how would I have done this? How would I have done that? And really, I never really thought of it because my biggest problem with the invasion angle, even back then, and so not counting hindsight, back then it was when the whole idea and WCW was bought out and people were talking about how it was going to be done, was if you did an invasion angle, how were you going to do it so that WCW wasn't the face? Because many of the people that people wanted to see, of course, were faces, and it would probably get face pops, and that's, of course, probably not what the WWE wanted, since, they were the guys who, won, so, you had all that, so you definitely wanted, not to have WCW come in and them be like the super faces. You just, because it would be basically, the WCW guys versus Vince McMahon. And of course, Vince McMahon was the hated heel at the time. So the question is, how do you do that? So in a lot of ways, this will not be an invasion angle per se, but it will be. And of course, one thing to remember as you're listening to me kind of talk about this is hindsight is 20/20. This will definitely be better. I can't foresee anyone doing the invasion angle today. It's been 10 years and not being able to do it better. Because, again, hindsight's 20/20. Now, that all said, as I go along, there's probably going to be a lot of people that said, yeah, but, the WWE wasn't able to bring that guy in or this guy in or whatever. That's point number 2, is one of the reasons why they didn't bring guys in was because of money, and they didn't want to buy up certain contracts. They should have. There's certain guys they should have just paid the money to, brought them in. Money could have been made. I definitely believe that you could have made enough money to offset bringing in those contracts. And also, you have to remember, this was 2001, 2000. Now, this was 2001. WWE was basically printing money at the time. I mean, they were making so much money, it was unreal. So, all of that, you kind of have, or I guess it was 2002 at this point. With all of that, there's no reason why they shouldn't have brought in guys in. Now, I'm not saying bring them in right away. You will see that as there will only be, you'll see. But, so just keep all of that in mind. And again, this is hindsight. So keep that in mind as well. But a lot of people have asked me about this, and really how this video came about was me, Big Rat, and Nightmare Baller were all in a Skype call, and somehow it came up of how I would have done the invasion angle, and I told Big Rat, and Big Rat basically said, you have to make a video about this. He was pretty much in awe of what I said, and I have thought about this for a long time, and also the fact that, particularly, I thought about doing a video about this after the Jim Cornette YouTube or U-Shoot, where he did his version of the invasion angle, which I didn't like very much, mainly for the same reason, because you were bringing in WCW guys, and a lot of ways they were kind of put as faces, and again, I don't think you can do that. So, let's get started. Let me say this. I'm not going to go through every pay-per-view. I'm not going to go through every little dissect of every little angle. I'm not going to say what every guy on the roster was doing. I'm just going to hit the high spots, because if I do that, then we're going to be here for like 2-3 hours, and no one wants that. I'm just basically going to hit the high spots. I'm basically going to talk about kind of the theme of kind of what I would have done, and when we get to a point, I'll get more specific as we get closer to the end of this. So, just to let you know, no, I'm not going to book every pay-per-view. I'm not going to talk about what I've done with every guy. I'm just going to kind of do kind of an overview of it. So, with that said, let's get started. And where we're going to start is WrestleMania 17. That's really where we're going to start, is WrestleMania 17. And the reason why we're starting at WrestleMania 17, basically, is because of the Steve Austin heel turn. And not because the Steve Austin heel turn was horrible, which it was, or not horrible, bad idea, because it was, but because in the way I would have done things, you can't have a Steve Austin heel turn. You just can't do it. So, with that said, we're not doing the Steve Austin heel turn. Instead, Vince McMahon, and this becomes a theme throughout this whole thing, Vince McMahon basically tries to screw Austin, and it fails, and Austin stays champion, and you know, you still have this Austin-Vince dynamic. So the next night on Raw, this is where we really start to, well, we haven't kicked off things yet. Couple things happen. First thing is we have Shane McMahon come out talking about the fact that, you know, he's bought WCW, and basically confronting his dad because his dad is basically blocking him for putting WCW on television. His dad's called it in favors, his dad's done this, done that, and so he's basically blocked his dad. His dad's blocked him from being able to utilize WCW. And Vince basically says, yep, you're right, I have. I'm not going to let you, that should have been mine. I was poised to buy it. You bought it out from under me, and I'm gonna make you pay for it. I'm gonna make you pay for buying it out from under me because, you know, I should rule pro wrestling, that whole thing. However, he still got to deal with Austin. And during this first part of this angle, the big thing is, until we get to what I guess it would have been Backlash, we kind of hype up the fact that if you are a champion, you do have a little bit of power in the WWE. And that Vince McMahon just can't fire Steve Austin because he's champion. And Vince McMahon can't just get rid of Steve Austin because he's champion. No matter how much he wants to. So he's got to get the belt off of Steve Austin. Rock failed, and not basically, but Triple H comes to Vince McMahon and says, tell you what, I'll take care of Austin. I'll beat Austin, but if I beat Austin, you got to give me three wishes. You got to be the genie and give me 3 wishes. And Vince McMahon says, yeah, I'll do that. That's not a problem. You take care of Austin. Come to the pay-per-view. Triple H wins thanks to interference, not just from X-Pac, Sean Waltman, but also from China. So it looks like we're going to get this, reunion of Generation X, D-Generation X, long before it was going to happen. And and so Austin loses. Next night on Raw, out comes Vince McMahon. The whole big angle for Raw is that Vince McMahon's finally going to fire Steve, or we're going to have a confrontation between Austin and Vince McMahon. Austin comes out, Vince McMahon fires him, brings out the cops. The cops try to drag Austin away, and as he's dragging Austin away, out walks Triple H and says, it's time for me to get my 3 wishes. And he says, you can have whatever you want, you just tell me what you want. And he goes, okay, well, I've already picked what I wanted. And he goes, and this is what I wanted. Out walks Kevin Nash, out walks Scott Hall. Vince McMahon's kind of like, huh? It looks like the clique is back together, and then there's one final person to walk out, and that's Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan walks out. They do a thing talking about, they basically ruled pro wrestling for the last, 10 years in some incarnation. The only person they're really missing is Shawn Michaels, and if Shawn Michaels was here, it'd be a true family reunion, and they're gonna take over the WWE the same way they took over WCW, because they're all here now. It's Triple H, it's China, it's X-Pac, it's everybody's here. Plus one other person. Out walks Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon has now aligned himself, and they say that this was Shane McMahon's idea. This was all the mastermind behind Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon says, you won't let me have WCW, so I'm going to kill the WWE. I'm going to use these guys to do it. I'm going to force you to either give me WCW and let me run WCW and take off and put it on television, or I'm going to do what you did to my grandfather, and I'm going to buy you out. I'm going to tear down the WWE so that I can buy you out. I'm going to use these guys to do it, but I can't take all the credit for this idea. Let me introduce you to my new executive assistant. And out walks Eric Bischoff. So, Vince McMahon has fired Steve Austin. Steve Austin is down there with the cops, and Steve Austin is laughing his ass off. Steve Austin cannot believe that Vince McMahon basically just got tricked, because here are all of these guys except for when, and he's laughing through this whole thing until Bischoff comes out, and when Bischoff comes out, then he gets pissed off. And the cops run him off, and he's pissed off because it's Eric Bischoff, and he wants to kill Eric Bischoff for firing him, of course. So that's kind of where the story goes. And the next part of the story is Vince McMahon basically trying to find wrestlers that will fight for him against these guys. And Vince basically has a problem there because, of course, he's been heel for X amount of years. And he's screwed people over. He's done this, he's done that. And there's a whole locker room that basically is like, you know what, maybe working for Shane wouldn't be such a bad idea. Or maybe, you know, I don't care who I work for as long as I get paid. That sort of thing. So he has a big problem of okay, who's going to side with me? Finally, who sides with him are the guys who came originally from WCW. You have Big Show, Jericho, Benoit. You even kind of bring back onto television Dean Malenko. I don't think Dean Malenko was on TV at this point anymore. And maybe, you know, 2 or 3 other WCW guys who were in WWE at the time. This part of it is just kind of filler until we get farther along. With Jericho basically being the main guy, because he hates Eric Bischoff, he hates, you know, kind of the NWO-esque type thing, because he feels like, you know, hey, they held me back, they did this, you know, and you basically start this feud that's kind of a filler feud leading up to SummerSlam. Jericho loses. Vince McMahon, you know, he's had these guys aren't winning. You basically, with this NWO-esque type group, you basically have them redoing the NWO and basically causing havoc, basically, you know, getting into matches, screwing up TV, doing this, that. Vince McMahon just, you know, and no matter what he does, he just can't do anything about it, and it's driving him insane. So finally, he goes to the Undertaker, and he says, please, you have to help me. You have to help me. And Undertaker agrees. Him, Triple H at WrestleMania or at SummerSlam to finally get the belt off of Triple H, because as I said, you've kind of built up the fact that if Triple H has the belt, he does have some sort of power, and so when they're using that with Shane to basically be able to, you know, curtail Vince and be able to basically stay in the WWE. Undertaker wins. Then he wins the rematch, and so finally Vince is like, okay, we need to end this now at Survivor Series. We have to end this because this is just driving me crazy. We got to get done with this. He tells Shane, what do we have to do to end this? So they agree on a match. Basic Survivor Series match, eliminations rules. Vince picks a team, Shane picks a team. Whoever wins, if Vince wins, this NWS type angle, this type group has to disband, and Shane basically has to, you know, give up this idea of WCW, of, you know, trying to bring back WCW. However, if Shane wins, the next pay-per-view, after Survivor Series, one of his guys, one of the, you know, Hogan, Nash, Hall, Triple H, one of those guys gets a shot at the Undertaker's title. And at the Royal Rumble, 15 guys in the Royal Rumble have to be WCW guys. Added, and then of course you'll have, you know, 15 WWE guys with Hall, Nash, Hogan, X-Pac. All of those guys, you know, and Triple H, all of those guys in on the WWE side. So really, Vince is only going to have like 10 or 11 guys really in the match at that point, because he does lose. He tries to cheat again. He tries to cheat, and then when he tries to cheat, he loses, or his team loses, and then he does the same thing with Undertaker. Undertaker ends up taking on Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan ends up beating the Undertaker the same way, because you know, you have this NWO-esque type group trying to cheat, and Vince trying to cheat, and it all backfires, and Undertaker loses. And so then Vince realizes that, oh my God, Hulk Hogan's champion. If the WCW guy wins, basically I'm going to have this WCW main event at WrestleMania. I can't have that. And so that's what finally convinces him, because during this whole thing, Austin's been gone. It's finally what convinces him to bring back Austin. So Austin finally comes back for the Royal Rumble. He's one of his guys. He comes back for the Royal Rumble. And so we get to the Royal Rumble. Doesn't really matter who Hulk Hogan takes on at the Royal Rumble to defend the title, because he wins through shenanigans. He wins. And so we're left with the Royal Rumble. First guy out is Austin. Austin's going to have to go through 30 guys. It's done before. Can you do it again? So that's where we begin. Guys start coming out. Eventually, maybe about guy 5, Chris Benoit comes out. Chris Benoit starts helping Austin. Austin will almost be eliminated, and Chris Benoit keeps helping him. And no one really is quite sure what's going on. By the way, Paul Heyman, I forgot to mention this, Paul Heyman is the other announcer with JR through this whole thing. And ECW guys have kind of been brought in through this whole thing, and every time they bring him in, they say, hey, it's one of your guys, and he says, oh yeah, I'm really glad, I'm proud, one of my guys came in, we're doing it the right way, we're being brought in the right way, we're not, trying to strong arm, Vince McMahon, this, that, and the other, and trying to put, and him basically siding with Vince McMahon and that sort of thing. So, he comes out, some other guys come out, and eventually Malenko comes out as well. And him and Benoit through this whole thing have been kind of, in Vince's ear, trying to convince Vince that they needed to bring back Austin and he needed to do this and this, and he wasn't going about it the right way, and he just would not listen to them. So, but eventually he does, and so he tells both of them he's going to put them in the Royal Rumble, and because he knows they both hate Bischoff, and they both, they don't like Hogan, and they don't like Hall, and they don't like Nash. So he's going to put them in to the match. Eventually, Malenko comes out too, and he's excuse me. He's helping Austin and Benoit, and all three of them start kind of helping each other. Austin's helping, but he's not quite sure kind of what's going on type thing. So this goes on, guys are eliminated. We're not going to go through every guy that's in here because it really doesn't matter. But eventually, the Undertaker does end up in the match. Undertaker comes down, he kind of eliminates some guys, and right after the Undertaker comes out, the next guy out, Goldberg's music hits. Goldberg comes out, everyone kind of just stares because it's Goldberg. Undertaker's sitting in the middle of the ring. Goldberg comes in, stares right at the Undertaker, and they just start beating the tar out of each other. It's like it's like the immovable force and the immovable object just going at it. And they're beating the tar out of each other. Everyone's just kind of watching. Even in the ring, they're just kind of like, oh my God, what's going on? And eventually they both eliminate each other out of the ring. And Undertaker's pissed because he wanted revenge against Hulk Hogan. Not going to get it, so he keeps beating the tar out of Goldberg. Goldberg's not standing down. And like, maybe 3 other guys come down during all this. And eventually they have to bring down security. Security separates them. Security eventually drags Goldberg out to the back. They try to cool down Undertaker. Undertaker eventually starts walking back to the back. He gets about halfway down the aisle, and Sting's music hits. Sting walks out. There's Undertaker. He's not moving. They're face to face. They're looking at each other. The crowd's going kind of crazy because it's Undertaker and Sting, and they're both face to face and looking at each other. And what's going to happen? And then Undertaker just kind of steps to the side, does this number, and kind of like, be my guest, go on, do your thing. Vince is going, and go down, and he and Sting just calmly walks down, and Undertaker tips his hat and walks to the back. That's all we get there. This keeps going on for a while. Last guy in the ring. Last guy to come down is Ric Flair. Ric Flair comes down. We've got maybe, 7 guys left at this point. Comes down. Everybody, eventually you get the last of the eliminations. Last 5 guys. Last 5 guys in the ring. Steve Austin, Sting, Ric Flair, Benoit, and Malenko. Because Benoit, Malenko, and Austin have all been working with each other this whole time. And Austin's looking across the ring, and he sees Sting, and he sees Flair, and he looks at Benoit, and he looks at Malenko, and he goes 1, 2, 3, and then he looks, and this whole time, I forgot to mention this, Bischoff is like at the commentating thing. He's like commentating during this, just so you can have this kind of wild, crazy commentary during this whole match, and he just flicks off Bischoff, like, look, there's 3 against 2, we're gonna win, screw you. And he turns back, and Benoit and Malenko look at him, and they shake their heads, and Malenko goes 1, looks over at Benoit goes 2, they look over at Flair goes 3, they all 3 look over at Sting, and Sting goes 4, just like this, and Austin's now freaking out. Austin's like in the middle of the ring, and he's going around, he's like, come on, and they all turn to Bischoff, and they all flick off Bischoff, and they all eliminate each other, leaving Steve Austin. And Bischoff's going apeshit, because he basically just got screwed by Sting and Flair, who he didn't really trust anyways. Oh, I forgot to bring that up. The guys in the ring, this is what I do when I don't write shit down. The guys that were basically picked, who, Shane picked to be in the match. This is part of the story. He just picks who he thinks are the 15 best guys WCW has, not necessarily the 15 guys that Eric Bischoff wants him to pick. And that's kind of like some tension between the two. And of course, this is what happens because of that, because there's guys that don't like Bischoff, don't like Hall, don't like Nash, don't like, because of the whole NWO thing. So Austin wins. Next night on Raw, Vince is all happy. Vince is all like, oh my God, you came back, you won, bygones are bygones, this, that, and the other. Bischoff, Shane, all of them, they come down. Shane says, well, here's the deal. We need to fit, or actually Vince says, but we got one more thing to do. This has got to end. This has got to be finished. He calls out Shane. Shane comes out and he says, we got to do one match, WrestleMania. I'm willing to put it all on the line. I have a new sense of confidence. One match, you win. I'll hand over the WWE to you. I win. You'll hand over WCW to me. Okay? And Shane goes, I'll agree with that. And at No Way Out, this is what we'll do. We'll have a match. And whoever wins that match, we'll have like an 8-man match. Or a 10-man match. Whoever wins that match gets to pick the stipulation for WrestleMania. Vince is like, not a problem. He goes to Undertaker. He goes to Steve Austin. Says, will you be in the match? He goes, I'll be in the match. He goes to Steve Austin. He goes, he goes to Undertaker. Will you be in the match? And Undertaker goes, I'll be in the match under one condition. He goes, what's the one condition? And he says, here's the thing. All this time, I've been the dead man. People fear me. People don't back. No one's ever not backed down from me. I've always been able to get into people's head. First time at the Royal Rumble, I saw a guy that I don't think scared of me. I don't think truly is frightened of me. A guy that maybe I don't even think I can beat. In Goldberg. I agree. You have to let Goldberg take me on at WrestleMania. Vince says, that's what it's going to take to put you in this match. Fine, I'll do it. And he goes, not only that, but Goldberg was WCW's greatest creation. He was their biggest draw. He was this, he was that, he was the other. And it would be so great for my greatest creation, Undertaker, to beat Goldberg. This is a great idea. We'll do this, that, and the other. So he's in the match. Rock, because by this time, Rock would be back from the movie, doing movies. So he's back. So he's in the match. He basically top loads everyone he can think of into this match, puts them in the match against Triple H, Hogan, Nash, Hall, and X-Pac. So 10, yeah, we'll do 10-man tag. That. Vince again tries to cheat, and again it backfires on him, and he loses the match. Next Raw. Vince is like, I lost. Everybody's mad at him. Everybody's pissed off at him. You know, all the guys on his team's pissed off at him because he lost the match for them. This, that, and the other. And so Shane walks out and he says, okay, what's the match going to be? And he goes, you know, we were going to, you know, we really wanted there to be a WCW main event at WrestleMania just to stick it to you. But this is going to give us a chance to do something even better. Because now we're going to be able to take WWE from you. This is Shane saying, I'm going to take from you at your greatest creation. You're the crown jewel, WrestleMania. And not only that, we're gonna scar WrestleMania. We're gonna take WrestleMania and we're gonna do the most horrible thing you can imagine we're ever gonna do to WrestleMania. Vince is like, what's that? We're gonna put 2 rings in WrestleMania. And he goes, what? And he goes, a match at WrestleMania for WCW or WWE is going to be War Games. It's going to be me and 4 guys and you. And any 4 guys you can find that are willing to get in a War Games match with you. And whoever wins gets it all. And Vince is like, War Games. And Vince goes crazy because it's War Games. It's the WCW match. And it's going to be at WrestleMania. And it's going to be the 2 rings. And WrestleMania can't have 2 rings because it's just going to make everything look, the aesthetics and all of this, and he just goes crazy. Shane leaves, he's all happy. And there is Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman says, I've had enough. He gets in the ring, he says, Vince, I lost the very thing I created. I lost the thing I believed in. I lost ECW. He says, I lost ECW to you. You're about to lose the very thing you created, the #1 wrestling company, the biggest wrestling company in the history of this business. And you're about to lose it. And he goes, trust me. I can tell you how to beat these guys. I can tell you how to beat Hall and Nash and the Clique. Well, maybe that's what we need to call it, the Clique. I can tell you how to beat these guys because this is basically, you know, the very thing that killed WCW. You have to do what WCW wasn't willing to do. You have to unleash the very thing that WCW wasn't willing to do. Even though that's really not true, but in the fans' eyes, they won't care. He goes, what are you talking about? And at this point, Malenko and Benoit come out. Malenko and Benoit come out. And he goes, these 2 guys have been trying to tell you all this time. And they have. They've been trying to tell him, except Vince thought that they've been trying to tell him to bring back Austin. That's not what they've been trying to do. And they go, we weren't trying to tell you to bring back Austin. We were trying to tell you to bring back this. And they turn around, and the Horseman's music hits. Out walks Ric Flair, and out walks crippled old Arn Anderson with the bad arm. And they walk out. And then they look back, and out walks Sting. And all 3 of them walk down. They're all in the ring. And they're all like, you want to kill this? You want to kill WCW? You have to kill WCW with the heart, with the soul of WCW. It has to kill WCW. And that's these guys. And so Vince agrees. And so basically you've got Sting and the Horsemen and Vince, what's left of the Horsemen, and Vince taking on, for all intents and purposes, the Clique NWO type angle as the main event. You have Austin and Hogan as well, and you're going to have Undertaker and Goldberg in this match, you know, at WrestleMania. That's your WrestleMania match. That's buy rates out the wazoo. I don't care how much money you've just spent to bring in those guys. You probably are going to make that money back at WrestleMania. So, holy hell. Of course, we know what happens. Undertaker wins. Austin wins. Vince and his crew wins. And so, he now controls WCW. We go the next night on Raw. Vince walks out, happy, excited, says, because I now have, you know, WCW, and I have all this talent. And what am I going to do with it? Well, this is what I'm going to do with it. Basically, you do the brand split. You say, I'm going to take SmackDown, and I'm going to make guys just for SmackDown. And I'm going to take Raw, and we're just going to put guys on Raw. So I'm gonna separate, and we're gonna have brand extension. And he turns to Paul Heyman, and he goes, Paul, come here. And Paul comes up into the ring, and he goes, Paul, you showed me what I needed to do. You helped me see what I needed to do. So as a thank you, I'm going to give you SmackDown. You basically can do everything you want to do on SmackDown. Just don't make it too extreme. But you can do it. SmackDown is yours to do with as you see fit. And tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have a draft. And we're going to put all the WCW guys, and we're going to put all the WWF guys together, and we're going to draft them, and that's how it's going to be. And he goes, Vince McMahon, and Heyman says, thank you. And he goes, but can I just ask for one more favor? One more thing. As you give me all this stuff, I just want to ask for one more thing. And he says, what do you want? And he takes the mic, and he pushes the mic down so you can't hear, and he whispers in Vince's ear, and Vince gets this big evil smile on his face. And he says, I like that idea. That's a great idea. Don't worry, we'll do that. And so we have the draft. Doesn't matter who the draft is where, except for Undertaker's on one brand, Sting's on another. You basically, for the next year, through, maybe they just see each other on pay-per-views, or just, every once in a while, they kind of have a face-to-faces, and you build up for the next WrestleMania, because that's WrestleMania 19. That is what you are building up to. Also, on Raw, the main storyline for the next year on Raw is basically the WCW guys that were drafted to Raw, because it's still kind of Vince's show, and Vince kind of sees the WCW guys as kind of second rate. And they're basically just trying to get, they're trying to, prove themselves, so to speak, and prove that they belong there, and all of that. And so that's kind of the story on there. And the end of Raw, what we have is we have Vince McMahon have this big celebration and confetti coming out, and it's him celebrating the fact that he now controls all of pro wrestling, and he's now the king and the ruler of all of pro wrestling. And that's the last thing the people within the arena see. It's not the last thing the people on TV see, though. People on TV see Eric... Oh, I didn't get to this part. Before we do all that, he calls out Eric Bischoff. And Eric Bischoff comes out and he says, you're still under WWE contract. You're still contracted to us through my son. And he goes, if you want to quit, you can quit. He goes, but you don't seem like a quitter. And he goes, but if you're going to stay, I've got just the job for you. And he goes, what? And he's all like, what are you going to have me do? Clean the toilets, what are you going to have me do? And he goes, no. You're going to become the executive assistant for Paul Heyman. And Bischoff throws a fit. Bischoff is like, you're going to have me work under Paul Heyman, this, that, and the other. He throws a fit. He goes storming out. And Vince says, well, I guess that was his resignation. And he leaves. And then the confetti and all of that happens. And that's the last thing that the people in the arena see. People on TV, though, they see something else. So now we get a little bit of suspend disbelief sort of thing. They show Eric Bischoff leaving. Eric Bischoff storms out, goes to his car, and there's Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman says, where are you going? And he goes, if you think I'm going to work under you, you're a bigger fool than I ever thought you were. And he goes, whoa, you don't understand. I had to tell Vince that you had to be my executive assistant, or he'd never let what's about to happen. He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, I was just given SmackDown. I was just given free reign of SmackDown. Now imagine, Eric, my genius, my ideas, with your innovation and your ideas. Imagine what we could do to SmackDown. Imagine what we could do. We could turn SmackDown into the #1 wrestling program in the world, eclipsing even the mighty Raw, Monday Night Raw, to the point that we could turn SmackDown into such a juggernaut that the stockholders that Vince McMahon has to answer to would see us as the guys that should run WWE, and we would push Vince McMahon out. Because you see, I did lose the thing I loved. I did lose the thing I created, but I didn't lose it to you. I lost it to Vince McMahon. I started a revolution, and that revolution was stomped on by a tyrant by the name of Vince McMahon. You see, yes, I asked him to make you my assistant, but really I want you to be my partner. Because we're going to take SmackDown and we're going to turn it into the biggest thing possible. And through that, we'll destroy Vince McMahon. And Bischoff looks at him and he goes, "You're serious? You crazy son of a bitch, you're serious?" And he's like, "I'm dead serious." And Bischoff thinks for a minute and he goes, "Well, wait a minute. What if something goes wrong? What if this doesn't work?" And Heyman gets this smile on his face. And he points back behind Bischoff. And Bischoff turns around, except the camera does. The camera stays on Bischoff's face. And Bischoff gets this bewildered look on his face. He goes, and he looks back at Heyman, and he looks back over his shoulder, and he goes, "It's perfect." And he goes, "Exactly. My Trojan horse is already placed. So what do you say?" And he turns back to Heyman, and he goes, "You got a deal, partner." And the last thing you see is them shaking hands with two evil grins on their face. And the camera goes to black. And that is a condensed version of how you book the invasion angle.